There's nothing quite like that feeling of excitement when it's time to go back to school. Good afternoon. It is the first day of school for students right across Toronto and the GTA.
And while there may be some nerves, it's also a time to meet up with friends and make new friends in a new class. CTV's John Musselman is at Treadway Woodsworth School in Scarborough. Day one, John.
Absolutely, Nathan. A lot of excitement here at this school. We saw parents and kids arriving here, a bit anxious for some of them. We'll show you some video this morning. As the kids were coming in, a lot of them were saying they're excited to get into that next grade. For many, it was their first time in a school. A couple of things, though, to bring up regarding this return to school. First of all, public safety. The mayor actually visited the school as well, talking about the community safety zones, really asking people to slow down their vehicles near school zones to keep kids and pedestrians safe as we return to school. The traffic levels definitely are back up. Also, the new cell phone rules for kids in senior kindergarten right up to grade 6. No cell phones allowed at all, and for kids in grade 7 to 12, absolutely no cell phones in the classroom. This is all about a plan to get kids to focus on their schoolwork while they are in the building. We did have a chance to speak to some principals, some parents, some kids, and even the mayor. Here's what they all had to say.
The first day is always very exciting. We're really excited to welcome students back and really welcoming and really willing to enjoy the students being back in the building. It's really a great time for us.
It's exciting, but it's also a little scary because before this we were in elementary school and in a different school, and that school is much, much smaller than this one. So normally I think pretty much everyone that came from different schools is feeling a little nervous today.
Very excited, honestly, for the opportunities I'm going to get in grade 8, new learning, scientific calculator, I'm excited. Grade 7, it was a big change from grade 6. Yeah, it'll be exciting to see all the new students.
First day of school, we are just excited to see the new teacher, her new friends, and her old friend as well. So really, we're gonna look forward to see how it goes.
I'm looking forward to meeting new teachers and visiting old teachers and playing with new friends at recess.
To meet their friends that they've not seen since the summer, so they're looking forward to that.
Everyone needs to be vigilant on our streets and pay attention to the rules of the road so we could all get to school and work and back home safely. I have 4 granddaughters going to school this morning, arrived already, I am sure. I want to make sure they get home safe and sound.
Ascot.
Now, the mayor was here as well with people from Toronto Police also talking about community safety zones and the speed cameras near schools. The whole idea here is to keep people safe. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, John. Meanwhile, there was extra excitement at a school in Etobicoke this morning.
Students arrived to begin classes at a brand new facility.
I didn't imagine this. It's looking really nice. So I couldn't ask for anything more. This is perfect.
And the gym looks pretty cool too. PJ, what grade are you going into?
I'm going to 6.
To 6. And what are you most looking forward to?
The gym and the library.
Why the gym?
Because I'm very athletic and I just like playing sports because it's fun.
The new Holy Angels Catholic School on Jutland Road opened today. Students will have the use of a learning commons and spaces for collaborative learning, as well as a state-of-the-art double gym. The former Holy Angels School was on the same site, but was torn down and rebuilt over the past 3 years. This morning, the principal helped welcome all the students and insisted enforcing the new rules for cell phone use in class will not be a problem.
Our board was instrumental in initiating a policy called acceptable use policy, and this happened many, many years ago, probably about 10 years ago, and it was revised as we went along. So basically that policy is always stated, and it's part of my morning announcements every single morning. Power down secure. You can only use your device if teachers give you permission for an academic purpose.
Yes, the principal said they previously brought in a system whereby phones are dropped in a box in the morning and retrieved in the afternoon, but phones can be used if sanctioned by the teacher and for students who have exceptionalities that have been identified.
There are concerns that cell phone use is becoming an addiction for children, and more has to be done. We'll be talking with the CEO of the Women's Brain Health Initiative in about a half hour's time. But first, a look at the forecast on this first day of school. Here's a live shot of the city, mainly sunny. Temperatures have gone up since this morning. We're in the 20s now. and we are in a run of sun that will last for a few more days, with temperatures rising, feeling like it is still summer. Right, Jess?
Absolutely. I mean, we're still technically in the summer season. We had the meteorological start on the 1st and the astronomical start is on the 22nd this year. So we still have lots of summer left. And the forecast over the next few days is fantastic. High pressure keeping a nice stable air mass over us. We have a nice southerly flow to the wind today. So that breeze you felt yesterday won't be nearly as strong, and a different direction of the wind will make it feel a little warmer. We're sitting kind of in the upper teens, low 20s, so comfortable for being outside. Sun protection is still needed. We still have a really high UV index as we head throughout the day today. Through the islands over towards Pearson, hovering between 20 and 21, but again, a more southerly flow to the wind makes a big kind of difference when it comes to what it feels like. That humidex returns as we head throughout the afternoon. It'll feel like 25, so it's not significant, but noticeably different from yesterday. We don't have that northwesterly flow to the wind. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we settle into these first few days. We get back into routine, but right now, send things back to Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Some tough talk on crime once again by Premier Doug Ford.
The premier is calling for jail, not bail, for criminals. Our Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live from Brampton this afternoon, where the premier was asked about the rise in violent crime. Siobhan.
Well, the premier took time to really express frustration again with this pattern we've heard of from both politicians and police officers, where we have somebody arrested for a violent crime, be it a carjacking or a home invasion, to get car keys. They are arrested, they have a date before a judge, they get bail, and then are released and commit another crime. The premier says it is time for the federal government to tighten up the criminal code. Here's more of what he had to say.
You know, you try to do this down in the States. Two things are going to happen. You're getting caught and you're going to jail for years, or the homeowner is going to shoot you, one of the two. And I'd rather keep guns out of communities, and I'd rather really support our police that we're putting a lot more money into guns and gangs across the region, and just supporting our police. But the judges and the JPs have to keep them in jail, and the federal government has to change the criminal code.
The premier has asked his attorney general to get some granular detail about how often that's happening, where somebody is charged with something, gets a date before a judge, and is released and commits again. At the federal level, we have seen before other governments try to implement mandatory minimum sentences for things like gun crime. Those were ultimately struck down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional. Reporting live from Brampton, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Starting today, work begins on the streetcar power system along a 3-kilometer stretch downtown.
Upgrades are being made between the Harbourfront Tunnel and Strawn Avenue. Streetcars will be replaced by buses along Harbourfront as a modernization work on Queens Quay and Fleet Street. Over the next 4 months or so, overhead wires will be replaced and reconfigured, along with upgrades to the underground power systems along the corridor. But Harbourfront streetcars will be operational for next month's Taylor Swift concerts, with increased service on multiple routes.
We will restore full streetcar service during the Taylor Swift concerts, when those are on only. We'll also add some service for those shows, just by the way. And then toward the third phase is sort of further west, so from Bathurst Street west. So again, we're going to have bus replacement running. There are about 8 streetcars, so it's not a terribly busy route, but it's an important route. So about 8 streetcars run in normal times. We're going to have about 20 buses running in peak times to help people get around.
The second stage of work begins in early October between Spadina and Bathurst. The 509 Harbourfront streetcar service will be restored, then between Union Station and Spadina Avenue. Replacement buses will be extended west and serve stops between Spadina and Exhibition Place. During the current first phase, buses are replacing the 509 streetcars between Union and Exhibition Place.
To Etobicoke now, a murder just across the street from a Toronto police station. It is a sign of just how brazen the gun crime has become. And we're learning this hour the victim is a 15-year-old boy.
And CTV's Sean Leithong is following this story and joins us now with more details. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, just a little while ago, we spoke to the aunt of the victim, but she was in fact the caregiver of the victim because his parents live out of the country. She identified the victim as 15-year-old Mario Giddings, saying he would have preparing for his first day of school in grade 11. But instead, at around 7:45 last night, he was shot in the area behind me. Police responding at that time and finding the victim suffering from gunshot wounds, rushing him to hospital where he later succumbed to his injuries. This entire area was, of course, closed off last night for the shooting as witnesses reported hearing multiple shots. Now, when I arrived this morning, some of the windows in the area behind me, you could still see bullet holes. Many of the businesses were open at the time, and you talked about just how brazen this shooting was. It was still daylight when this happened. There were people inside of the pizza shop behind me where the shooting took place, in front of where there were bullet holes in the glass. One of the bullets actually ricocheting into the drinks fridge in the area there, the owner being stunned by those bullets, finding out that the victim himself was 15 years old, would have been 16 years old in November. This according to his aunt. She said he had been living with them for the past 5 years. Also, having spoken to one of the victim's friend's mothers, who was here in tears today, saying that they had hoped he would have come with them to the CNE yesterday with her kids, but in fact, it just didn't seem to work out. She said last night was one of the worst nights she could possibly imagine after coming home from the CNE, kids preparing to go to school, and then finding out that their kid's friend had in fact died. Now, they speculated on some issues that may have been going on, some conflict that the boy may have had, but nothing sure just yet. We know that police have been combing the area for quite some time. They've been trying to find video evidence, and we also know, as you said, it's just across the street from 12 Division. I can actually see the police station from where I stand right now, with the shooting scene having been directly behind me. But we'll remain here for the rest of the day and have a full report coming up at 5 and 6 o'clock. But for now, Nathan and Michelle, I have to throw it back to you inside.
Thank you, Sean. Now to the Middle East and growing outrage in Israel after 6 hostages were murdered.
There is mounting pressure on Israel's prime minister to accept a ceasefire deal. CTV's Jeremy Charon reports.
Grief and heartbreak in Israel as thousands gathered to mourn Israeli-American hostage Hersh Goldberg Polin.
Okay, sweet boy, go now on your journey. I hope it's as good as the trips you dreamed about, because finally, my sweet boy, finally, you're free.
Goldberg Polin, one of 6 hostages found dead in an underground tunnel in Gaza this weekend. His family helped lead the push to free hostages held by Hamas since October 7th.
How sorry I am that we didn't protect Hersh on that dark day. How sorry I am that we failed to bring him home.
Here and across Israel, there is growing anger too, directed at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, faced some of the harshest criticism yet from his American ally.
Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
Bibi is prioritizing his own political interests at this point.
Accusations Netanyahu angrily dismissed.
We're asked to make concessions? What message does this send Hamas? It says, kill more hostages, murder more hostages, you'll get more concessions. The pressure internationally must be directed at these killers, at Hamas, not at Israel.
Hundreds of thousands took to the streets in Israel for a second straight day. Amidst growing government opposition, Israelis furious over the failure to secure a ceasefire deal to release hostages.
This country, these people, our freedom, our values, he's willing to sacrifice everything so that he can remain on his chair.
One of the largest protests since the start of the war, part of a general strike called by Israel's largest labor union, shutting down sectors of the economy, highways, and Israel's airport for hours before a court order put a stop to it.
Washington described new urgency in getting a hostage release deal done. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the next few days will be critical.
Jeremy Sharon, CTV News.
The war in Gaza has become a key issue in the U.S. presidential race. Last night, U.S. President Joe Biden joined Vice President Kamala Harris on the campaign trail.
Are you ready to fight? Yeah! Are you ready to win? Yeah! Are you ready to elect Kamala Harris our next President of the United States of America?
It was the first joint appearance since Harris replaced Biden as the Democratic nominee. The pair appealed for union support at a joint Labor Day rally in battleground Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump is expected for a town hall midweek.
There was a tragedy on Holiday Monday on the waterfront.
A man died after he went missing for more than an hour in Lake Ontario. This happened yesterday afternoon. Police say the man was swimming near Bluffers Park Beach around 4 p.m. when the flotation device he was using deflated. The man was later found and rescued by emergency crews and rushed to hospital where he was pronounced dead.
The federal transportation minister is promising to find out why passengers were left stranded for 10 hours when their Via Rail train broke down over the weekend in Quebec. Pablo Rodriguez posted, "Passengers deserve better," on social media. Via Rail confirmed the train was stuck for 10 hours between Montreal and Quebec City. Multiple mechanical issues are reportedly to blame. Via Rail says the area was too remote to call shuttle buses. Making matters worse, electricity, air conditioning, and washrooms were all shut down for periods of time.
We're getting a look at some new images of the Titanic. This is thanks to a rare expedition to the shipwreck site in the Atlantic. This photo shows the rediscovery of the statue Diana of Versailles. The bronze statue hasn't been seen for decades and was feared lost. Another image shows a large portion of the railing around the ship's bow has fallen. It stood as recently as 2022. The company that owns the rights to the wreck says it's committed to preserving the Titanic's legacy.
As we settle into a new month, we have new temperature norms and new rainfall norms. Now, we're only just a few days in, and we've seen decent sunshine so far, and we hold on to that for the next few days before another round of rain comes just in time for the weekend. But temperature-wise, we're holding on near seasonal as we head throughout the first few days of this shortened work and school week. So something to look forward to. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, including the active weather that we are watching, making its way from the prairies towards us here in southern Ontario. All those details after the break.
All right, to the forecast. I know it's a lot of kids on the way to school, maybe a light sweater. How were your kids dressed?
You know what? Yes, we were listening to the forecast, and we did the shorts, the T-shirt, but with the sweater. And I have to say, by the time we were at school, like 8:20, the sweaters were coming off. So this weather could not be better for the kids going to school.
It really is clutch.
Yeah.
It is so nice because I feel like we like those fresher mornings, right? You can get yourself going. You're not already sweating as soon as you walk out the door. And then that slow but steady warm up kind of begins as we head into that midpoint of our day. And we have a very seasonal forecast for these first few days of September. So as we get back into routine, the weather isn't something that we have to worry about. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Lots of sunshine to start the day. If you're an early riser, you felt the freshness out there, but we have seen a more southerly or southwesterly flow to the wind for the most part to get the day going. And that helps significantly when it comes to spending time outside. So again, it's like that light sweater time of year, and then you warm up into the afternoon and early evening. Now, as we head throughout the day today, a significantly lighter wind, so that breeze you felt yesterday that if you weren't in the sun felt a little cool, we don't have that throughout the day today. We're sitting now at 21, so we're fairly seasonal. We'll get a little warmer as we head into that, late afternoon kind of point of the day, but overall it's really quite comfortable. Still pretty warm towards portions of northern Ontario. They're still seeing a bit of a ridge in the jet stream bringing warmer air over the southern prairies, and that includes northern Ontario. As we head throughout the day, wind direction again plays a big role. It'll be southerly or southwesterly for the most part, very light, and that will help keep things comfortable. We are bang on, right on par for seasonal at 23 as we head in towards the afternoon, and almost everybody kind of in that 22 to 23 degree range. Heading into this evening, it's quite changeable. Temperature-wise, we kind of slowly start to cool down as we head into the early morning hours, but overall, we kind of average out in a fairly seasonal way. Still a little cooler, single digits through London, Goderich, and our friends through Bancroft. They were in a frost advisory yesterday. There's not much going on in the satellite and radar picture. A good thing, I guess, for the kiddos getting back into school and for parents and caregivers out there getting back into routine. As we head throughout the day today, again, high pressure keeping us nice and clear, but we'll keep an eye on a system making its way through the prairies. There's that cold front. It's going to push its way down very slowly, and as that comes through, it'll bring some rain, and after that, a bit of a cool down. So we'll go from seasonal to just below as we head in towards the end of the week. But your forecast and radar picture, it works. There's just nothing going on as we head throughout the day today, and that continues into this evening. A nice clear night ahead of us, a little cool but comfortable for sleeping, and the same as we head through Wednesday. You still need sunglasses for that drive to start the day, to end the day. Sun protection still a really good idea. We still have a super high UV index as we head through the next couple of days because we have beautiful sunshine. It really isn't until we get in towards the end of the week that we see that system in towards northern Ontario start to sink its way down a little closer. But timing-wise, this really is a Friday night into Saturday morning situation for the rain. Temperature-wise, though, very seasonal today. Into our Thursday, we get a little warmer. And then we start to see that system push its way into Friday. So it'll start as cloud cover, so not a rainy day by any means, but just kind of overcast. And then as we head through our Friday night into our Saturday, that's when the rain comes in. So kind of a rainy weekend, but sometimes those days are kind of nice, right? It's a cozy weekend. You can sit inside. Everyone's thinking pumpkin spice or whatever, so it's kind of nice. But it will bring temperatures down as that cold front comes through. So it is not cold, just fresh as we head through our Saturday and Sunday, and then things return just in time for a brand new week. I'll send things back over to you guys.
Thank you, Jess. Thousands of people marked the Labor Day holiday yesterday with the annual parade in Toronto.
It celebrates workers and unions and came in the wake of recent labor disputes in Toronto. CTV's Natalie Johnson has the details.
Thousands strong, labor leaders, locals, and workers from across the region marched shoulder to shoulder, marking Labor Day in Toronto, celebrating a gamut of gains at the bargaining table, including wins on wages and job security.
The challenge is we have to keep fighting to make sure that those workplace issues are improved, to make sure that people are able to have a good job that provides good wages.
But there is also acknowledgement of what more they want to do at a time of mounting labor disputes and disruptions. LCBO workers walked out in July. The 2-week strike was the first ever in the Crown Corporation's nearly 100-year history. While a recent last-minute deal to avert a TTC strike netted workers a 13% pay hike over 3 years, costing the city $176 million. At City Hall, the contracts for more than 25,000 inside and outside workers come due at the end of this year, this time with a labor-friendly mayor at the helm.
We're getting into the bargaining, but we will be fair. We will work together. It's important that workers, especially workers for the city, no matter who they are, have a good quality of life.
It comes, though, as the city's finances remain strained. Government facing the same cost of living constraints as the workers.
The best anti-poverty policy is a unionized job, and people are increasingly recognizing that. And that's why we're seeing this renewed prominence of unions once again in public discourse.
Those unions standing strong in the streets, their fight for fairness, a labor of love. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Coming up on CTV News at noon, we've learned what's causing a strange noise on the problem-plagued Starliner rocket ship. We'll have the story after this short break. A tug of war is turning ugly between federal civil servants and the federal government. The federal public servants have been ordered back into the office for a minimum of 3 days a week starting next week.
But remote workers are resisting the loss of what has become a popular perk. And now the union representing them is fighting the mandate in court. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has the story.
Ottawa's downtown core is about to get busier. The frustrated workforce of public servants will return to the office 3 days a week.
I think we recognize that change is hard for people. So there are people that have worries.
The federal government says the change from 2 to 3 days a week for employees and a jump to 4 days a week for executives will help improve productivity, the public service's reputation, and result in better services for Canadians.
The motivation for that is really the importance of connecting people, building a culture within the public service so that we can deliver our services to Canadians.
They're upset about this.
The unions, however, disagree and are promising to continue protesting the mandate.
This is creating a problem when we already had a solution, and that solution was remote work. Because remote work works, it's the way of the future.
The federal government is just the latest and biggest organization to ramp up return to work. New data from Statistics Canada shows that 18.7% of people are still working mostly from home. That's down from 24.3% in May 2021. Pre-pandemic, though, only 7.1% of people worked primarily from their home office. While many workplaces say a return to a more pre-pandemic work environment is good for productivity, employees are mixed.
The more often individuals come into the office, they're starting to break or make new habits and falling into a really nice routine and actually quite enjoy it.
Workplace experts say that a hybrid work model is here to stay, but that how often an employee spends at home versus at work will be up to each individual organization's needs and culture. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
As students return to school, many will be investing in a new laptop.
There are plenty of options, and CTV's Pat Foran has some insight.
When it comes to laptops, you can spend a little or a lot, but many have become more powerful and efficient and come down in price. Consumer Reports has some of its top picks if you need one for high school, college, or university. With nearly everything costing more these days, it's easy to overspend getting ready for back to school, but Consumer Reports found you don't have to spend a lot to get good quality tech. One of the best options on a tight budget is a Chromebook.
They're generally less expensive than Mac and PC laptops. They're not the fastest computers out there. But for kind of everyday stuff, browsing the web, editing documents, that type of thing, school, work type of stuff, they're totally fine.
This Acer Chromebook is a solid choice. It's fast, has long battery life, and more local storage than most other Chromebooks. It has a list price of $400, but is currently on sale for $380. If your student needs something that won't weigh down their backpack on a mad dash to class, this laptop from Lenovo is an excellent choice for power and portability. It has a list price of $800, but is currently on sale for $500. If your student wants an Apple,
save a little bit of money and still get a very good Mac laptop.
With the 13-inch MacBook Air with the M2 processor, the M2 is Apple's older processor, but experts say the performance difference between the M2 and the newer processor is so small that you might as well save a few bucks by going with the previous model. If your student also needs a color printer, this tank model from Epson uses low-cost bottled ink instead of expensive cartridges. Its list price is $330, but it's currently on sale for $250. The overall printing performance isn't stellar, but the text quality and speed should be fine for printing book reports and whatever else the teacher assigns. When shopping for laptops, check to see if there are discounts for students. And if you think you may need a new computer, now is a good time to shop. September is the best month to look for deals due to back-to-school sales. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
By now, you're probably familiar with Boeing's Starliner spacecraft. It brought 2 astronauts up to space, but malfunctioned on the way up. To be safe, those astronauts will be coming home on a different spacecraft. But now that spacecraft has started making strange noises. All right, for more, we're joined by CTV science and technology specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, good to see you. You have to imagine those astronauts are feeling pretty relieved they're not flying back in that thing. Now, what is the latest?
Yeah, I mean, so once NASA made the call that the astronauts weren't going to be coming back on Starliner almost like wanted to show off that they'd made the right call. It started making this weird ping noise. It was coming through the speakers, but Butch Wilmore, who's one of the 2 astronauts who was supposed to be going home in that thing originally, called Mission Control and said, hey, our spacecraft is making a strange noise, and kind of held his device up to it so they could hear the sound. And they figured out what the sound is. It's nothing major. What it is that the speaker system of the International Space Station, which has all kinds of crazy connections for different kinds of spacecrafts and things, was connected to Starliner, and there was a little bit of a funny feedback thing happening. It's nothing that was dangerous, nothing that would have caused a problem, but it is the camel and the back and the straws all over again, because that spacecraft, it's freaking everybody out. And so the plan right now is September 6th. That spacecraft is going to fly back by itself, take a 6-hour trip, and land on Earth. But I'm sure everybody's going to be watching very closely to make sure that it makes it, because, of course, that was supposed to be the ride that those 2 astronauts were taking.
All right, good to hear. So, Dan, speaking of space, there's a fascinating new hypothesis that would link the moon's drift away from Earth with evolutionary changes. Can you explain that?
This is a weird one, but I really like this. So the moon has been slowly moving away from the Earth for a long time. Every year it gets about 3 centimeters farther away from us. And just like a figure skater extending their arms, it slows down the rotation. So the Earth doesn't spin as fast as it used to. If you go back millions of years, the Earth, would do a rotation in 22 hours, not 24. And researchers have been able to look at deposits on the seafloor and figure out how long a day length lasted back in the day. and figure out how fast the moon has been moving away. And all of it comes together to suggest that when the moon has had periods where it's moving away more quickly, evolution seems to have sped up. Things like the Cambrian explosion tend to happen when the moon is moving more quickly. And it's a bit of a mystery why that might be. It might have to do something with how much photosynthesis is happening in a day and how much oxygen is available for living things to feed on. But right now, it's a correlation in need of a good explanation, but it's a haunting one.
Yeah, it's always something. So finally, Dan, a new study claims just 10 minutes of mindfulness a day can have a significant mental health benefits. So that sounds almost too good to be true. Is this backed up with science or just clickbait?
Yeah, exactly. I saw this and I was like, come on, 10 minutes a day is going to make a real difference in your mental health, please. But turns out if you do 10 minutes every single day for a whole month, it does add up. And they've got some nice science to back it up. So people in this experiment downloaded an app, a mindfulness app that just basically walks you through a meditation. Sit down, breathe, focus on your breathing, stuff like that. But it sort of takes you out of your workday and makes you focus on the moment at hand, to be mindful. As a control group, other people in the experiment downloaded an audiobook of Alice in Wonderland and listened to a story for 10 minutes every day. Both groups got a benefit. Both groups had decreased depression, had better mental health overall. But the group that had the mindfulness app did a little bit better than the group that was just listening to Alice in Wonderland. So the big take home is taking 10 minutes out of your day to just forget about work and forget about all the pressures and just do something else that relaxes you does have a benefit. And even 10 minutes a day, if you can do it every day, does pay off in as little as a month. So might as well go for it.
Yeah, it's important to remember. Thanks, Dan. CTV Science and Tech Specialist Dan Riskin. Take care.
An analysis of health funding data over the last 20 years shows federal transfers have mostly outpaced increases to provincial health budgets. The data was collected from the start of the 2004 Health Accord under former Prime Minister Paul Martin. The analysis shows overall federal health transfers grew by 212% between 2005 and 2023. That's compared to a 158% increase in provincial health spending over the same period.
Still to come, there are concerns about a trade war between Canada and China. That's after the break.
Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
All eyes are on the Bank of Canada this week as it makes its latest decision on interest rates.
Despite some mixed signals from the economy, experts expect a rate cut is the most likely outcome tomorrow. Stats Canada said last week the economy grew at an annualized rate of 2.1% in the second quarter, beating the Bank of Canada's forecast. But the GDP per capita shrank for the fifth quarter in a row. The bank had held interest rates at higher levels to try and slow down runaway inflation. That figure dropped to 2.5% in July. The key interest rate stands at 4.5% right now. Forecasters expect a quarter of a percentage point cut on Wednesday.
China is poised to retaliate against Canada after Ottawa announced tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles.
BNN Bloomberg's Amber Kanwar has a look at the top business stories.
A trade war is developing between Canada and China. China says it will start an anti-dumping probe into canola imports from Canada. The move comes 1 week after Ottawa announced tariffs on Chinese steel, aluminum, and electric vehicles. Last year, Canada exported $5 billion worth of canola products to China, accounting for 95% of China's supply. Tomorrow is decision day for the Bank of Canada. Economists widely expect the central bank to cut interest rates for a third meeting in a row. This comes as recent data has showed Canada's economy is cooling down. The unemployment rate is at a 2-year high, while GDP figures show that the private sector is struggling. Inflation, meanwhile, has been coming in lower, with headline inflation at a 3-year low, giving the bank cover to cut interest rates to aid a slumping economy. The first trading day of the month is underway right now, and it's a broadly negative session. This is actually quite on brand for September, which is historically the worst month for the stock market. Investors are patiently waiting to see if the Federal Reserve will deliver on its first interest rate cut later this month. Oil prices, meanwhile, are hitting the lowest level of the year on concerns of slowing demand and fears of rising production coming from OPEC. That's the latest in business. I'm Amber Kanwar in the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom.
There'll be some big changes as students return to the classroom today.
One of the most significant are the new rules regarding the use of cell phones in schools. A new school year inevitably brings change. A new grade, new teacher, and this year, new rules that will no doubt take some getting used to.
Let's keep in mind that many of these students right now probably have grown up having a cell phone from a very young age.
Karen Littlewood, president of the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, has concerns about the province's new cell phone ban in schools.
What is that safe spot where a student will put their phone in the classroom if they have it out when they shouldn't? Is the office going to be big enough for the number of students who may not want to hand over their cell phone?
Students from kindergarten to grade 6 will be asked to keep devices on silent and out of sight for the entire day, unless permitted by an educator. For students between grades 7 to 12, phones will only be banned during class time. If the rules are broken, the phone will be confiscated by a staffer, and parents will be notified. Students could face suspension for repeated violations.
It's good that an attempt is being made to do something about it. It is all being left up to teachers right now, so they may have to deal with, how are they actually going to implement it. And it's also important that we remember that technology it's here to stay.
Also of note this school year, there are a number of curriculum changes. Students entering grade 9 will now need to earn a grade 9 or 10 technological education credit in order to receive their diploma. There will also be 2 experiential courses for grade 9 and 10 students. One is called Building the Entrepreneurial Mindset, while the other is titled Launching and Leading a Business. Both are aimed at giving students hands-on experience. And beginning this year, the EQAO math test in grade 9 will make up 10% or more of a student's final math mark. Plus, the province plans to spend $30 million to install vape detectors and other security upgrades in schools. Students caught with vapes or e-cigarette products on school property will be required to surrender them, and their parents will be notified immediately. So let's circle back to the big rule change, and that's the cell phone ban in schools. It goes into practice today, but there are concerns kids are addicted to their devices, and much more needs to be done. Joining us now live is Lynn Poslins with the Women's Brain Health Initiative, which has launched an awareness campaign. Lynn, great to have you. Before we talk about that, you welcome this new cell phone ban going into effect today, but as far as you're concerned, it is just one tiny step in addressing what you call a national crisis in brain health. Tell us more.
First of all, thanks for having me, Michelle. It's nice to be here. Yeah, we think it's a good step, but not enough, and I'll tell you why. And we've heard directly from the kids. We have been teaching a program called Brainable for middle school children, so that's basically grades 5 through 8. And what these kids are saying is that they are addicted to their cell phones, but the problem is coming more so at night. These kids have their devices in their rooms. They're not being monitored at night. And they're on their social media. They're chatting with their friends via text on their devices. And they're downloading information that may be concerning to them. And what's happened is that they are staying awake at night to 1, 2 in the morning. These kids at that age need 9 to 11 hours of sleep at night in order to be able to process their emotions properly, be focused at school. So the reason we say that the ban is good but not far enough is because a lot of the problems happen not in the classroom, but actually in the evening. And we heard this directly from the kids. And that's why we think there's a concern.
Okay, well, anecdotally, my kids are going to kill me for saying this, but we just tried to implement, some limits, right, where you input it right into the device so it'll shut off if you use it for a certain amount of time, and they freaked out. It was like an exorcism, right? And it just, and the way they're acting, so part of the conversation in our household is what the harms are of being on the device, because they don't seem to understand what it does to them. And I think that's where you could really fill in some of the gaps. Tell us about what device addiction does, particularly for young minds.
It's like any other addiction. It's like a smoking addiction or a vaping addiction. It's the same kind of thing. And we are likening this to the smoking campaign. And smoking rates started to come down when kids started to talk to kids. And what we think is missing from the conversation is the kids' voices. So we actually brought a number of kids together that had taken the Brainable program to understand more. And the reason that we thought this was important is because what is missing the ban isn't enough. What is missing is the education. We have to inform these kids about the harm that excess social media and device addiction has. And the Brain Help program does just that, but it goes further because it also provides a parent tip guide. It gives parents tips and resources for them so that they can manage this process at home better. It also gives teachers more resources to continue the learning beyond just the one program that we introduce. So education is important to empower these kids. They're going to be on their phones and other devices when people aren't around. And unless they understand what the harms are by educating them, they're not going to be able to know how to deal with it properly.
Well, let's talk about understanding the harms. There's a video series released this month. How do we access it, and what's it going to show us?
Yeah, so we filmed these kids in the summer at the summer program, and it was frightening to hear what they had to say. They know how to get around bans. They also talked about the implications on their mental health in terms of not being able to handle the stress of the social media that they're on. They talk about being proud if they got off of it. And they talked about, of course, the Brain Help program and how it's helped them to do that. But it also talks about the harmful effects that it has in terms of counteracting the things and the habits that are good for their brain health, such as nutrition and exercise and proper social engagement, one-on-one social engagement with their friends and their families. It talks about managing their stress. So this one bad, which is social media and device addiction, is outweighing all the beneficial activities that are good for these kids' brain health. And that's why, again, the education is so important. So we're going to be releasing this video series every Tuesday starting on the 10th. And any parent with school-age children really needs to see and hear firsthand about what these kids are saying.
Well, it sounds like an incredible, timely resource. Lynn Poslin's with the Women's Brain Health Initiative. And we adults, too, probably should be shutting off our devices as well. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
There's been a devastating loss of young athletes on the football field, and there's renewed concerns about safety in sport.
While the deaths occurred in the U.S., they're also raising concerns right here in Canada. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth reports.
7 young football players recently died in the U.S., and St. Mary's Huskies head coach Steve Samara has several questions.
How were people practicing? What were people doing? What was the temperature?
Football is a physical and mental grind. This year's Huskies training camp was a test of attrition.
We were here at 9 a.m. and we'd end at 9 p.m.
But not all on the field. Camp included weight room and classroom activities. Samara says this program has adopted a safety-first mentality.
Even if you watch a practice, you'll understand, like, it's not just 2 people running into each other.
Based on data from the National Center for Catastrophic Sport Injury Research, 16 U.S. football players died in 2023, ranging from youth league to college age. 13 were related to football activities. The father of an 8th grader who died from brain trauma in a football game last month says his son's death should be a wake-up call for the sport.
I just think we need to maybe put more safety measures out there to protect our kids.
Former Football Canada president Richard McLean says compared to when he played more than 30 years ago, the game is much safer.
The amount of contact, the two-a-days, the physical exertion, the running without breaks, going 2.5 hours with not a water break, those things don't happen anymore.
But Richard McLean also thinks there is still much more that needs to be done, including education and safety training for players, coaches, and officials.
We have to now put the money into the sport that's needed to be safer.
McLean also wants more rest time for players during games, especially in hot weather. It's a move he believes could steer the sport away from injuries and possible tragedies. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Coming up on CTV News, the city of Brampton is making its mark when it comes to automated speed cameras. We'll have those details in moments.
The city of Brampton says it's marking a significant milestone in its photo radar program.
The city has opened a new automated speed enforcement processing center. Officials made the announcement this morning. The center will process tickets for photo radar cameras. The city says there will also be 110 cameras operational by the end of this month, including in front of schools and parks, and 185 cameras in place by the end of this academic year. The mayor says it is the fastest and largest deploying of its nature in the country.
We're putting reckless drivers and those that speed in community safety zones on notice that this will be the worst city in Canada to speed. That if you're going to speed, if you're going to drive recklessly in our community, it's going to be very expensive. We're going to hit you where it hurts, in your pocketbook.
Patrick Brown says there was a 20% reduction in speeding where cameras were installed. Another reason to slow down.
Yeah,
and you know, we should slow
enjoy the
down
weather.
and take in the view, the summer air. It's beautiful today.
Listen, I drive the speed limit and I play my music and everything is good. But the next few days really are beautiful. If you want to go for a walk, you want to go for a drive, we're still in that time of year where you can be outside, get active, and we're not dealing with any kind of really cool breeze just yet. A southwesterly wind today will help keep us nice and warm and fairly seasonal. As far as active weather goes, there is some on the way, but likely not until the weekend. And we'll keep a close eye on how that system develops. But for now, just a whole lot of sunshine out there and a fairly moderate wind. Sitting in kind of that low to mid-20 range throughout the day. And as we head into the afternoon, we warm up to about 23, feeling like 25. A fairly seasonal or just above seasonal forecast through the start of the week. Friday, a little more cloud cover rolls in, but that rain really doesn't come until overnight. So a great forecast to settle back into those, you know, more normal routines for a lot of folks. And then a bit of a rainy kind of start to the weekend, but overall it is going to be fantastic for the first week back to school.
Yeah, great start. Thanks, Jess. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.